This training, hosted by the Capital Area Coalition on Homelessness, CACH, is on how to enter a homeless path client into Client Point, Middleware Information System Bowman Service Point, which is the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, for Harrisburg and Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, Continuum of Care PA 501. This training took place in October 2016. As an end user, in this case I am shadowing an end user for Dauphin County MHID Crisis Intervention, you'll be taken to the home page dashboard, and you'll need to click on Client Point. That'll take you to the first window, which says Client Search, and that's the beginning of our first process. The first step in entering a client is to search if the client is already in the HMIS. This is to avoid entering duplicate entries. So when searching for a client, we'll start with the lowest common denominator. In this case, we will use a fictitious name, and we'll search to see if there's any person with that last name. Finding no matches, we'll expand the search and include the first name. Finding no matches with that, we'll then add the Social Security number. Search again. Finding no matches, we can be pretty confident that we have a unique person without any variance in either Social Security number or name, and then we can enter the rest of the information. After entering the rest of the information on the quality of the name and quality of the Social Security number and whether the person's a U.S. military veteran, we can add this new client with that information. That'll open a window that says Backdate Mode. If your client had entered a few days earlier and you are now entering their information, especially for the first time, it'll be important to backdate it to the date and when that client entered your program. If you do not do so, then there will be problems in your reporting system. So in this case, we'll just keep the current system date. Now we're ready to enter the person's information, and we'll be following a procedure where we always go from top to bottom and from left to right. We'll be using the tabs here on top, and we're going to be proceeding from left to right, and it's important to follow that order because sometimes by going out of order that may affect the data entry and affect reports. So client profile is just where you'll see the various information that you've entered. The next step then is to enter households. Now if the client is not a member of a household, we can skip this tab and go straight to the next one, which is release of information. However, if the member entering your program has a household, has dependents or associates entering your program, then you'll need to enter them through households. Step number 2, link all members and dependents or associates to that person's household. So to do so, we'll click on this household tab here and search again for existing household with the last name. That's again to see if the person is already in the system that as a household. Finding no matches, we can add new household. It'll ask us to select the household type, and we'll say family, female single parent. And now we can enter the first person that's associated with that person's household. We'll enter a dependent, a son, and in the same way we will search to see using the first and last name and then again with the Social Security just to make sure that that person is not already in the system. So searching, we find that there are no matches, and then we can continue. So we'll add that person. And now we find that, we'll hit continue. Now we'll find that we've created a household with 2 clients in there. And we have to now establish the relationship of the clients to each other. Any example is the head of household, and that changes the relationship to self. Just an example is not the head of household, and the relationship is son. And we can save and exit. And now we have successfully created a household. It is important to create that household before going on to the next tabs, especially the entry exit tab where you enter most of their client demographic and HUD and path related information. Because if you do not, then when you enter their information, each person will be entered as a separate household, and that will skew your reports. So again, that's why we go from left to right and up and down. The next step in the process is to complete a release of information. And this is important because the release of information in the computer will give all the other agencies global access to be able to see that that client is in the computer. So that if that client enters their program and they type them in, they will know that that client already exists and will avoid entering duplicate information. So now we go to Release of Information, ROI, and we add a release of information. We'll say the release has been granted. And for the end date, it's important to type a date that is far in the future. And again, that is because the release has to be, for the computer's sake, open for all agencies to see that client to avoid entering duplicate information. One other important thing to do is whenever you're doing steps related to this client, and that client's a member of a whole household, you need to click on this box here to make sure the whole household members are included in this action. So we'll say it has been documented, and we can save the release of information. And we've successfully created an ROI. Now we can go on to step 4, which is entering the client's entry-exit assessment. This is the place where all the information that HUD and path requires is predominantly entered. So again, we move from left to right to the next tab, which is entry-exit. And again, it says here, reminder, household members must be established on the household tabs before creating entry-exits. So that's why we did households before we did entry-exit, moving from left to right. So we'll add an entry-exit. We have to link the whole household to this entry-exit, so we'll click here. And the type of entry-exit we're doing is path. Save and continue. And now we can enter the HUD path entry for the head of household, any example. So I entered the basic information for this client, basic demographics. These questions ask both HUD and path-related questions. Path-related questions are a little bit about their disabilities, and HUD-related questions is predominantly about whether that person is chronically homeless. And I answered the question as if that person was chronically homeless. And when they ask for your housing status, chronically homeless, meaning from the streets or emergency shelter or a safe haven, that would be considered category 1. It also asks for monthly income and income from any source, and the reason I mention that is because in the next sub-assessments which you have to enter, it asks the same sort of question. So step number 5, we need to complete the client's sub-assessments, of which there are 4: income, non-cash benefits, health insurance, and disability. So here we see the sub-assessments, and these 4: monthly income, non-cash benefits, health insurance, and disabilities. In order to answer them, we need to go to this red exclamation mark, which is a exclamation mark to tell you that all the answers, or rather questions, in this sub-assessment have not been answered. So we'll click on it to access all the questions that need to be answered, and they all need to be answered, or else this exclamation mark will remain red. They cannot be left incomplete. So the easiest way is to just click here on No, which gives the no answer for every one, and then just pick the 1 or 2 or multiple yes answers that are relevant. So for source of income, I will say yes to SSDI. That'll open another record set in which I need to write the monthly amount, and I had already done that earlier. The end date you can leave blank. Save and exit. And you'll see that that red exclamation mark has now turned into a green check mark, which says that all the answers have been answered. We'll go next then to the non-cash benefits. We'll say yes, they are receiving non-cash benefits. We'll access it again by clicking on this red exclamation mark. Hit no for an answer for everything, but yes for food stamps. Save and exit. and we'll see that the HUD verification exclamation mark turned into a green check mark, indicating that everything has been answered. Is that person covered by health insurance? This time, let's say no. And we'll just click no for everything. Save and exit. And it's now a green check mark. Disabilities, we'll say no to everything, but yes for mental health. And it will give you a record set. Here you answer the various questions, and most of them are path-related questions. And you don't have to enter the end date. Save and exit. And again, it turns into a green check mark. The next thing, it asks if the person's a domestic violence survivor. We'll just say no. You don't have to answer those questions there. This is a very important sub-assessment. This is outreach. And this is where you'll be entering every contact multiple times before that person becomes engaged into your program and enters your program. So the next important step, 6, is completing the initial outreach. So we'll do so by hitting add. We'll do the date of outreach, which is today. And the location is either a place not meant for habitation, or perhaps you're meeting that person in your office, a non-residential setting, or at a service setting that is residential. Let's just say we met them at a place not meant for habitation. We'll leave the end date blank and save. So we'll leave the date of engagement and enrollment into path later when that person actually becomes enrolled. And we can save and exit. So now we've successfully done an entry exit, and we know that we've done it correctly because there's a client count of 2 people in that household. However, we are not done. We still need to enter some basic information for the second person and other person in that household. So the next step, 7, is to make sure that all dependents and all associates, that their basic data is also entered. To do so, we need to switch to their entry, and we do so by selecting the other household member, in this case, just an example. Hit submit, and now we are in just an example's record. And what we need to do is go to Client Profile, and here click on the Entry or Edit Client Demographic, and then enter that basic information. After we've done so, we hit Save, and then we've entered his information. And now we've successfully entered all members of that person's household. For future entry into a client's record, you'll use the interim assessment, and you'll use it for 2 functions: for updating, in which you use it for outreach and using the outreach sub-assessment, engagement and enrollment, or when you update information. Or you'll use it for annual, for the annual assessment that's required by HUD and by PATH. To do so, you'll need to click on Entry Exit, and there click on the interim. You add interim review, make sure all household members are checked, and here we'll select either the annual assessment or the update. We'll choose update for the first. Here we can update any information that we want to update, or if you're still in the outreach phase, continue adding outreach information. Then when the client is ready to engage or enter path, then you'll enter this information. Save and exit. And then you've entered an interim. I'll add another interim now. Add the whole household. And this time the interim will be the required annual assessment. And here you just add or leave unchanged any annual changes to that person. And now you've successfully entered both an update and an annual interim. Finally, when the client exits your system, you will need to do a closeout in order to have correct reports. At the Entry Exit tab, go to the exit date and the edit icon. Select all household members and answer all questions related to reasons for leaving. Save and continue. And that will take you to the exit assessment to update as needed. And you've successfully exited the class. This concludes part 1.